Hi guys, I'm Greg Alba.
And I'm John Humphrey.
Did you see our Joker teaser trailer reaction? You really should, because we're about to break down this trailer. I'm excited to go into this. A couple of things that I wanted to mention. Breezing through the comments, I've seen a couple of similar things being pointed out. Everyone's comparing Joker to like the other Jokers already. He's comparing Joaquin Phoenix to Heath Ledger or Jared Leto, and I'm like, well, he looks amazing in this trailer. Yeah, he looks incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Before you try to decide who's number one in your book, you should probably wait to watch the actual movie first. That's just your safest bet. The other thing is too, I see people kind of talk about the idea of like giving the Joker an origin, because a big part of what's made him work in film mediums and television mediums is not really knowing what his origin is. My point to that would have to be, it doesn't really bother me here, only because Warner Brothers has strongly pitched this as this is not directly connected to the DCEU, that this is its own little venture, its own little thing. If this was connected, like if this was the Jared Leto replacement, I might be a little bit concerned. For something like this where they only have a little bit of backstory to borrow from, because there's obviously some Killing Joke inspirations in terms of him being a stand-up comic who descends into madness. They have that. Yes, there is no Ace Chemicals involved in his origin, it seems like, at least. Like, a lot of this is very unique, and a lot of this is created out of just original ideas, because there's not a lot of backstory ideas to truly draw from in terms of the comics.
Well, yeah, and we've seen a lot of different takes and stuff over time, so for me as a viewer, the Joker specifically takes on this life where I kind of take every take on the Joker as its own take, and not just the definitive one, because part of the fun of the Joker is that it doesn't really seem like there is a definitive one. I mean, there are a couple that you can point to for strong details, but part of the mystique of that character is, the origin could perhaps be anything.
And so as we go into this, if there's anything you think we're wrong about, you disagree with, if there's any theories that we miss, please feel free to comment below. If there's anything you think we just flat out misinterpreted, feel free to share your opinions. We'd love to hear it. Anywho, let's hop into this. So when the trailer starts, they have this opening shot, which immediately reminds me of the opening shot of The Dark Knight, actually. And now The Dark Knight, they shot that in Chicago primarily. For this movie, I heard they primarily shot it in New York and some stuff in Los Angeles. But it seems like the city streets environment that they're borrowing from here is most clearly New York City.
Oh, yeah.
Which is perfectly suited, especially because of the vibes of like Scorsese films like Taxi Driver and King of Comedy. It's pretty fitting to have it be in New York for this one.
Well, New York is one of those cities that seems like it lends itself to Gotham. It's very packed and tall and bustling and stuff like that. I almost feel like in LA or something would be a bit too spread for a Gotham City.
Yeah, and especially for a story in the 80s that's dealing a lot with like anti-capitalism, which was a big theme of the 80s and movies in the 80s as well. We'll talk more about that later on in the video. New York City is just the perfect environment for that. And then right at the center, you can see there's a sign that says Gotham General right there.
I believe that's Gotham General, yeah.
I thought at first it said Gotham Central, but taking a closer look, it says Gotham General, and it would just make more sense, especially when you go to the next shot, which is with Deborah Kane, who in the comics is actually a social worker for Child Protective Services. In here, she's saying to him, does it help to have someone to talk to? And based off this trailer, it looks like in the beginning of Arthur Fleck's journey that he's genuinely seeking help for the emotional and mental issues that he's going through in this story.
Yeah, he looks like he's struggling with mental illness and just trying to get a grip on that.
There's a line that he says in this trailer that seems to be such a character theme throughout, and it just goes into play from the beginning to end, and it's super Joker-ish, where Joaquin's Arthur Fleck says, "My mother always tells me to smile and put on a happy face. She told me I had a purpose, to bring laughter and joy to the world. Is it just me, or is it getting crazier out there?" Now, this smile symbol is just there throughout the whole trailer. In his jokes notebook, there's one clear line you can make out towards the bottom of the page. It says, "The worst part about having a mental illness is people expect you to behave as if you don't." And there's a smiley face within inside of the circle of don't. It seems like a lot of this storyline that as he's descending into madness is whenever he's experiencing pain, he's going to be doing things to force a smile, to block it. And I've always been fascinated with that just in life. We live in LA, where a big part of our culture out here is, be positive. Like, I mean, there's a lot of cynicism.
I was wondering if that would turn into some kind of at least a character exploration of like sometimes you can't just paint everything with positive thoughts and hope it's all going to be okay, you know. And I hope that this movie really, it seems like from the structure of this trailer that the first part of it is going to walk around in his mental state as a mental patient perhaps, or at least somebody struggling, and the ways in which he tries and fails to cope with it.
One phrase I always flashes to mind in situations like this is you can't build your house on the sand. Eventually the house will sink. You need a good foundation. And I sort of see that happen all the time with people who have a lot of emotional mental struggles, who just try to block it all with positivity, but then before you know it, they crack, they relapse, they explode. So from a psychological standpoint, I'm really, really drawn to this specific element, especially for my personal viewing experience. Of course, with The Smile coming into hand, the song Smile.
The Smile came from Modern Times. It was the Charlie Chaplin movie. It's actually like an instrumental suite that was then repurposed. I think the version in this trailer is by Jimmy Durante, but I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I mean, it's a classic. There's Modern Times literally referenced later on in this trailer, so obviously the Smile motif comes back in the song. But also Modern Times is a comment on industrialization and, you know, the rising just capitalism and things like that, you know, workers' rights and things, and that looks like a heavy undertone to this movie too, so it's just another layer deep of that, you know, illusion and metaphor.
I love where they kick off with the song of the line of dialogue, the lyric of "Smile through your heart is aching, even though it's breaking," and the whole song is basically about no matter the problems, keep on smiling. So it's perfectly suited for this trailer.
Oh, yeah.
So glad it just wasn't some cool cover.
Yeah, and it's because of how much of a tone juxtaposition it is. Like, it helps that the irony is really on point there with the title of the song, the sentiment of the song, etc.
Yeah, and then you get some images of him taking care of Frances Conroy, who is a reoccurring actress on American Horror Story.
And just a great character actress across the board.
She was on Everybody Loves Raymond as a reoccurring character, even then. So she has range. Yeah. This feels reminiscent of several things. My mind immediately flashed to in King of Comedy, how De Niro's character does live with his mom, and he's a comedian who really wants to make it onto a talk show. You do get some like Norman Bates vibes.
Travis Bickle, obviously, and this, just because I saw it recently, parts of this reminded me of You Were Never Really Here, because in that movie too, he's like living with his mom and bathing her, and they have like a very intimate relationship, and in that movie he is struggling with mental illness and violence and things. Like, weirdly, this reminded me a lot of that movie, just in a different context.
I was saying way before this trailer even came out today that if Joaquin Phoenix did a hybrid of You Were Never Really Here meets The Master, you'd probably get a perfect performance here. Yeah, and you do see shades of both of those in just this trailer alone. And then later on in the shot, you see him, he's being a sign twirler. That's his job. He's dressed in his clown makeup. He has a sign holding that says "Everything Must Go." And then in the later shot, you can see that inside of a music shop of sorts, that it says "Everything Must Go." So maybe the store's closing down. Maybe this plays a factor into Arthur Fleck's life at the time. You know, you see shots later on where he's in a locker room, he's getting dressed, he's putting on makeup. I'm kind of thinking that maybe this music shop has people perform every once in a while, so maybe they would have like some dressing room upstairs or something.
Or maybe he works for a sign twirling agency that has multiple people twirling around town or something.
Yeah, perhaps. You know, you do see in the shot too, outside of the store, that there's a person playing on a piano. But anyway, back to the sign. Looks like some punks decide to take his sign, steal from him, and he starts running after them. And I feel like there's some symbolism happening here. And I also think this scene is probably later in the movie than how this trailer is actually advertising it. They take the sign and they hit him over the head with it. And in the next shot, he's kind of cowering like a child on the street, and he's holding his crotch.
It looks like they kicked him in the nuts.
Looks like they kicked him in the nuts.
Yeah. That's gonna be, they're gonna do a direct Family Guy.
I feel like there's some symbolism there, because when you piece together the trailer, it could be later on in the movie, because in a later part in the trailer, that's when he's on the subway station, he's wearing the same outfit and makeup. That's when he starts to crack. That's when he starts to really look like he's really breaking. It looks like the defining scene of where he's just laughing maniacally on a subway station.
And crying. I mean, it looks like he's oscillating. He really is on the edge there. It looks like,
This scene right here could be the scene prior to that moment. I feel like there's some symbolism there with having a sign that says "Everything thing must go, hitting it on his head, mental illness, breaking it, and he's breaking down. Let the sanity go and just give in to all your pain and all your trouble.
And it also,
I don't know if it's just just a coincidence, or maybe that's direct symbolism on Todd Phillips' part. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and there's also, I think, an economic, at least, nod in that, because it's a store that's going out of business, and there is all this civil unrest over capitalism and the predatory nature of that. So I'm sure that it relates to the time and place this movie wants to be into.
Well, that's why I was thinking he does work for that music store and the store shutting down, so not only does he have all these struggles, but now he's out of a job. Now, here's a fun Easter egg that took a little bit too much research, but it was worth it for this one thing. In the next shot, you see Arthur dancing with his mom. I did read one comment, which I couldn't find again prior to filming this video. Someone saying that he thinks like the mom's like gonna die a little bit right after that scene, basically. But basically, when they're dancing there, the television's on. There's a credits that say written by, and we looked up the names of everyone who was listed there. A few of those names are actually people who are directly involved with this movie. You see the name Michael Azura, who is the assistant art director of this movie, Will Limpert, who's the production secretary, Ben Gattalori, who's the travel coordinator, assistant production coordinator for this. The second I saw his name, I was like, this has to be some sort of, I thought it was gonna be like Batman stuff, but like, oh, that's actually been kind of cooler, like really acknowledging your crew and putting their names in there. I thought was pretty neat.
Well, if they're all listed as writers, I gotta wonder if they're all people who, like, if they just finished an episode of Robert De Niro's show, or something like that, because it looks like it's late at night.
It looks like it's part of the talk show element. And an establishing shot of the donut store. First off, there's an awful lot of trash out front.
Clean up those streets.
I have never seen so much trash out front of a restaurant. Like so much trash right there. There's a couple of things I noticed. It says it's on Jerome Avenue, which is a real street in New York. I don't know how detail oriented they care about that, like, oh, there could just be another Jerome Street in Gotham City, or maybe this really is New York and Gotham's close to New York or something. But I also thought it might be in cool tribute, or maybe I'm just reading too much into it, to Cameron Monaghan's Jerome portrayal of the Joker on Gotham. Another thing I noticed, like I said, I could just be reading too much into this, but there's obviously a lot of Scorsese vibes here. The crosswalk sign also says "Don't walk," which could have a deeper meaning for the characters. It could be referring to Azazie Beet's character of like, don't get involved with this guy, because there's a scene in Goodfellas with the Lorraine Bracco character Karen. Basically, she's confronted with a choice to walk into some place, and then the camera tracks up, and then in front of the camera appears the crosswalk sign "Don't walk," which has been talked about as like direct symbolism to her choice in that moment. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, maybe it's just a crosswalk sign, or maybe Todd Phillips wanted to pay even more tribute, And then, of course, that donut shop moment that is with Zazie Beetz, who plays a character named Sophie Dumond.
She is described as a cynical single mother and Arthur's love interest. So that's going to turn out well.
I don't know if they're on a date or if he's just friend-zoned at this moment. I get more of that vibe.
Either way, it's just a tender moment. It seems like one of the actual bright spots of this movie, potentially, and it looks like perhaps one of the few positive elements of Arthur's life. Probably represent a good amount of the debate of this movie, if there is one.
The next shot, we see Arthur Fleck. He's crossing the street to the Arkham State Hospital, which when you were doing research, I'm like, wait a minute, why isn't this called Asylum?
Arkham Asylum, yeah. I mean, it's an outdated term by today's standards, and, probably by the 1980s it would have been. I mean, they closed a lot of the old school like mental asylums down. They probably just rebranded it to fit the times.
I feel like it makes it feel more realistic too. It makes it easier to establish that it's not connected to the direct DCE.
Yeah.
There's a shot here that maybe just has this character meeting, nothing like too heavy plot wise. I really like that shot where Arthur's riding the elevator and right next to him there is a patient who is just clearly losing his shit, And next to them, you see a security guard or a warden, and then an orderly who are transferring this patient to wherever they're transferring him to. But I think it's a cool sort of symbolic moment for the character of Arthur. He's going to this place where clearly people are getting treated for the criminally insane, and I don't know if he has some criminal background established in this story. His whole journey, it seems like, is he just wants to be normal. He just wants to be happy. He wants to be healed. Here, he's cornered into this tight environment, being forced to have to be right next to this energy. The same people who are treating this guy are treating him, you know?
Well, it's a great visual juxtaposition of his struggle in general, because he looks so tense, like he's just trying to hold it together, and I feel like that's probably just a larger metaphor for his character, because right over his shoulder is the insanity.
We do see Brian Tyree Henry. We'll go back to him in just a little bit. And in the next shot, he's watching a stand-up comedian performing at a place called Pogo's, which you instantly put together.
Oh, yeah, because Pogo is the clown alter ego. Pogo the Clown was John Wayne Gacy, which is, one of our most infamous serial killers, and that makeup even that he's wearing.
Yeah, we looked up the photos, and you're like...
through much of the trailer is very reminiscent of Pogo the Clown.
Yeah, and we found this quote that's Gacy once said that acting as a clown allowed him to regress into childhood. So it just seems like more than ever, especially with the footage, that a big part of the inspiration for this psychotic version of the Joker could be drawn directly, not just from, inspirations of the comics and inspirations of other Scorsese films or something, but from real life serial killer John Wayne Gacy. What's cool in this trailer is he's got a couple of different laughs here. I know we were talking about it, how that laugh may seem ADR from a different moment, but based off what the trailer's communicating, I love that laugh in that particular moment, and especially with the body language there, because he's sitting alone, he's listening to the comics, he's seeing that he's being loved, like the comic is being loved. And it just seems like a laugh where he's kind of trying to blend in. He's trying to fit in, feel like he belongs a part of something. Like it seems so forced. Like he doesn't really find this funny, but he's trying to.
That's actually one of my less favorite moments of this trailer.
Oh, really?
I don't know. This is completely speculative on my part. It feels like they went, we need a Joker laugh somewhere in this trailer. This is the most appropriate place to put it. Because to me, it feels really out of place the way he's laughing, and it doesn't look quite natural to me for some reasons. I kind of feel like it's forced, but in the wrong direction.
Huh.
But we'll see when the movie comes out.
Marvel shill.
That's right, man. Captain Marvel's out now. Go see it, people.
Let's go back to that moment we were talking about earlier where he's cracking on the subway, and it looks like some, Wall Street asshole types.
Generic suited.
Yeah. And it's a movie in the 80s, and a big part of the 80s did represent, like, corporate greed, anti-capitalism. Even in a later shot with some of the protest moments with the clowns holding signs, there's one very clear sign from a very specific clown that says, anti-American, anti-capitalist, a job is a right, capitalism does not work for you. And there's other images too that reflect that based off what happens later on in the trailer that we'll go into, of certain lines that, like Thomas Wayne says. These guys beat him up, and this could be a big part of why it seems like a big victim of the Joker's will be someone who is like one of these Wall Street kind of guys, one of these big corporate kind of guys. I imagine that maybe these guys have something to do with helping him descend into that direction.
Well, that's a part of this trailer that makes me the most curious, because it is kind of the most vague to me about this, is kind of a chicken and an egg thing about there's clearly the clown imagery is tied to this city-wide protest, this movement of sorts. And so I'm sitting here going, did the Joker somehow spark off an anti-capitalist movement, or is he co-opting the image of this to further instill chaos? Where do all these elements fit together? And that's an aspect of this I wasn't expecting, was some kind of social commentary, kind of like you would see in the 80s, and also very relevant to now, too.
Part of what I'm getting from this, because they do see Thomas Wayne on the screen, you hear his line, and that actor was actually in The Dark Knight Rises. Because when you're seeing the protests, you're seeing others dressed up in the clown aesthetics. Thomas Wayne says, Gotham's lost its way. What kind of a coward would do something that cold-blooded? Someone who hides behind a mask. So it's very apparent, at least what I'm gathering from this trailer, like my basic theory goes something like this. So Arthur Fleck is a struggling stand-up comedian. You see an image later on in here where he goes up on stage. He's not in clown makeup or anything like that. But, when he does the twirling signs gig, he is in clown makeup and such. So it seems like at the point of when he cracks, I imagine that he probably kills someone very important. Maybe some big corporate guy, maybe some big politician perhaps, but he does it not in clown makeup being revealed, but wearing a clown mask, because that's specifically what Thomas Wayne is saying. You see a lot of people donning pretty much the same kind of mask. You even see a shot later on in the trailer where he's walking through the subway, he takes off the mask and throws it in the trash. So I imagine he probably kills someone wearing the clown mask, or it could be something along the lines of what you're talking about, where this revolution has already started, him partaking in it, he decides decides to murder someone using that image, right? Then I imagine that he starts to embrace, because these are the whole thing with the clown revolution image seems like this is a revolution for the people. So in aiding in his stand-up bit, I think he starts to apply makeup on himself. It makes me think of like when Steve Martin first started doing stand-up comedy, he used to dress kind of silly. Then to make his act funnier, he just started wearing a suit and looking like a regular guy. And it's kind of an opposite effect here. Instead of looking like a regular guy, he's embracing the people and starts wearing clown makeup on stage, which eventually leads to him being a big comic. He's relating with people and then lands him on the talk show that you see Robert De Niro was hosting. Or it could be the opposite, where he kills someone before any of this revolutionist stuff is happening. Obviously, there's already a lot of anger with the people. So it could be he starts the whole clown mask revolution. He starts that whole symbolism by killing someone. Instead of people being like, who's this murderer? People are like, he did a good thing. He was right. We're all going to don the clown mask
kind
now.
Weird vigilante hero
Exactly.
situation.
It could be one or the other. Either way, he kills someone, I imagine, first wearing the mask. Because you do have that shot, too, later on, where there's a close-up on the gun's already been fired. It's going off. So maybe he broke into someone's office and killed that person. So yeah, there's people protesting outside of Wayne Hall at this moment. Arthur Fleck, you see him rolling down the stairs, but he's not in clown makeup and he's not wearing a clown mask. So perhaps you're probably closer to that theory that people already started wearing the masks beforehand. Then you see this Bruce Wayne moment where he's pretty much trying to lure him in. It's kind of like
Pennywise.
Yeah, it's like sort of pedophile vibes in a way.
It's icky.
I don't think he's actually gonna like sexually abuse the kid, but it does kind of get there a little
you
bit.
Shouldn't put your fingers.
You put your fingers in a
children's
boy's
mouths.
hand. Yeah. But it's also very in tune with the symbolism of what the smile stands for here. It could be one of two things. He's trying to lure his way inside of Wayne Manor, but the fact that he gives him those, clown-like prop flowers, Bruce Wayne looks incredibly sad, and the whole theme of him blocking depression and pain with a smile is probably after the moment when Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne have been murdered, presumably by him.
Yeah.
The whole ending moments are all cut to make it look like he's pretty much getting ready for the talk show. In a way. I mean, you see some like origin moments when he's first applying the green hair, which is a cool like putting on the dye moment.
Yeah.
But then the talk show moment, I get a couple of things here that I flashed to. The King of Comedy reference for sure. Like that's just straight out of the King of Comedy. Also to have De Niro in the position that Jerry Lewis played, I think is pretty neat.
Well, and I wonder if that might even become some kind of hostage situation, because they've been pretty upfront about that King of Comedy, like that keeps getting included. So I wonder if he's going to make like a public scene on TV or something now that he's got the platform.
It also could be partly inspired by in the Dark Knight Returns comics, in which the Joker, he is being treated for mental illness through Arkham, I believe. It could be either way. He's getting treated through a mental illness, and then he goes on a talk show and hopes to be welcomed back to the public. I don't imagine it's the same intent. I think he's just going there to do comedy. Because they wouldn't let a guy who's like, this guy murdered a politician, we're going to bring him on the show. Like, I don't think they do that.
No, it's not possible.
So yeah, there's just some other quick moments. The last moments of the trailer, Arthur's running down the hallway in the Arkham hospital. And this could be the moment earlier when Brian Tyree Henry gives him this really suspicious look. And Arthur's like, what? And in that shot, he's holding a portfolio, probably like documents of his past or mental illness
history or something.
Exactly. So obviously he broke in and stole it. And, probably got into a fight with Brian Tyree Henry, who's just credited as playing a nurse in this movie. So there's one shot here where I'm kind of, I'm very fascinated by, because I can't tell if there's an actual shot in the movie,
Yeah, well, and it kind of reminded me, the big long stairs shot where he's like dancing and jumping down and stuff like that. It kind of reminded me of that makeup test, the way that is kind of dreamy in the way that he's just sort of standing there and straightening himself out, and then he laughs a little bit, and that had a similar energy. And I almost wonder if it comes out of some kind of montage or some kind of weird surreal sequence of sorts.
Well, the cinematography too, it does in general kind of look dreamlike. It looks a little bit detached, a little disillusioned.
Slow,
looks like a reflection of his mental state.
Yeah, the push.
Yeah, and he's like dancing on the staircase. it looks like Bully McGuire.
He does remind me.
It could also be a symbolic moment because there are shots where he's walking up the stairs at the very beginning of it. And this shot, now that he's become full Joker, he's going down the stairs, and it could be a symbolism for descending into madness, where when he's walking up, even though he's not succeeding, he's trying to move up, he's trying to move forward. And then the staircase going down, he's going crazy.
Yeah, well, and even in the way those moments are shot, because the first part of the trailer, when he's coming up, it's a closer angle. It's almost like his head is surfacing out of water or something like that. And then in the end, the staircase is in the wide. We see his whole body. We're shooting from below, which is a more powerful position to come from, you know?
That line, I used to think my life was a tragedy. Now I realize it's a comedy. That's just the whole theme.
Hey,
that's
man,
a perfect line. Like, there are good lines in here. You know?
Difference between comedy and tragedy is time.
Very Shakespearean.
Yeah.
That was what the two categories he had, right? Yeah. Anywho, what'd you guys think of this Joker trailer? Leave your theories, breakdown opinions, whatever you want in the comments below. You guys can subscribe to the Reject Nation, click that notification bell, check us out on Patreon. We got plenty of goodies, a lot of exclusive content. It's worth your time, kind of worth ours, not worth my mom's. I'll see you guys later.